In Cellar 2022, Keira Woods moves into a new house with her family, only to face a horrifying truth: an ancient and malevolent entity controls their home. When her daughter vanishes mysteriously in the cellar, Keira discovers the perilous force within their midst. To save her family's souls from eternal jeopardy, she must confront this powerful entity, embarking on a chilling battle against an otherworldly force that threatens to consume them all. The Woods family is moving into their new home in the countryside. Keira and Brian are very proud of the house, and their son Steven is excited as well. But their daughter Ellie is a different story. She hates having left her friends behind and feels disconnected from her parents, thinking they don't understand her. There's an old painting of a man with a finger raised, and letters from an unfamiliar alphabet. When they check out the cellar, they don't find it very interesting, but on their way out, the door gets closed before Ellie can leave. There's something wrong with the lock that won't let her open it again, and when she feels something in the dark approaching, she begins getting scared. Fortunately, the key is hanging right next to the door, so Brian uses it to let her out. In the evening, Keira asks Ellie to babysit Steven because she and Brian need to go to the office for an emergency meeting. While Ellie's on the phone with an old friend, she suddenly gets jump-scared by a strange figure. It's just Steven, wearing a cloak and a weird-looking skull that he found in a hidden compartment in the rec room. The family hadn't known about this hidden compartment, so Ellie checks it out and finds a plaque in it that says Solviti Coagula, an old record player, and an abacus. Steven says he's heard the house used to be owned by a witch that made a pact with the devil, then asks to try the record player. Ellie gets it to work, and the recording plays the voice of a man reading the equation written on the record before it starts counting. A few hours later, a strange breeze comes from under the cellar door and cuts off power in the entire house. Ellie calls her mother for help, and Keira tells her to go down to the cellar to check the circuit breaker. Too scared to enter such a room in the dark, Ellie says she can't do this, so Keira tells her a little trick of hers she uses when she needs to clear her mind. She counts. Keira guides Ellie through the phone. 10 should be the last step, but when Ellie reaches it, she closes her eyes and falls. On the other end of the line, Keira can hear her counting up to 30 and not responding to anything she says, so both Keira and Brian hurry to return home. When they get there, they can't find Ellie anywhere in the house, so they call the police. A quick search of the surrounding woods is done to no avail, and since there isn't evidence of any crime happening and Ellie has run from home before, the cops just tell the parents to wait for news since she's probably at a friend's house. In the morning, the family asks some neighbors for their help and they go into the forest to search again, but the result is the same. Brian understands that Ellie had been mad with them, so it's natural that she ran away, but Keira doesn't think that's the case. She's sure something happened to Ellie. The next day, Keira hangs missing person signs and forgets to pick up Steven from school until the teacher calls. After retrieving her son, she visits the police station for updates. The detective informs her they've checked cameras and contacted Ellie's friends but found no leads, also noting Ellie's history of bullying on social media. Feeling guilty for not knowing, Keira requests forensic investigation of the cellar, convinced Ellie didn't run away. However, the detective reiterates that without a criminal case, he can't proceed further. Upon returning home, Keira discovers Solviti Coagula carved above the front door and researches it online while Steven plays near the cellar door. She finds it's linked to ancient alchemy, representing dissolve and coagulate. Images linked to the phrase depict a 5-pointed star and an odd snake. Keira, intrigued, calls Steven over, who joins her after dropping his ball near the cellar. Steven reassures his mom that the only change that night was playing the record player. Otherwise, nothing seemed unusual when Ellie disappeared. Keira shifts her focus back to Ellie's social media. There, she discovers her daughter had an anarchist tattoo unbeknownst to the family. Intrigued by this revelation, Keira resolves to revisit the cellar. She pauses to glance at the pentagon above the door before entering with a light tube. Keira discovers Roman numerals and an equation matching the record player's inscription, but the shocking reveal under the UV light, disturbing faces on the wall, prompts the cops to send a forensics team. During their search, Steven's ball accidentally rolls into the cellar. Despite their efforts, the team finds no further clues, attributing the painting's existence to the 50s. Brian admits they purchased the house inexpensively from an elderly owner, unaware of its history. That night, Keira is awakened by Steven, who has wet his bed. After tending to him, she seeks solace in listening to her daughter's voice on the answering machine. Unexpectedly, Ellie's counting voice emanates from the sink pipes. Keira follows the sound, leading her to the cellar. Accidentally kicking Steven's ball, she hears it bouncing for an unusually prolonged time. Turning on the light and descending the stairs, she searches for the ball but finds nothing. In the morning, Brian discovers Keira fixated on the symbols above the doors, holding the equation from the cellar. He attempts to console her, suggesting that fixating on random symbols won't yield answers. At work, Keira contacts her realtor, learning little beyond the previous owner's relation to a respected academic. Seeking distraction, she photographs the symbols and delegates their research to her secretary. However, consumed by worry, Keira struggles to focus during her meeting and leaves quickly. On her way out, Keira's secretary identifies the symbols as Hebrew glyphs spelling Leviathan. When she picks up Steven from school, he's injured from a fight about Ellie. Keira discovers online that the Leviathan resembles the serpent associated with the Solviti Coagula article. Keira activates the record player, starting the counting voice. The abacus moves by itself in the rec room, and Steven, also counting, heads toward the open hidden compartment. Hearing him, Keira turns off the record player and prevents Steven from proceeding. When asked, Steven doesn't recall his actions. Keira investigates the painting of the man with the raised finger, identifying him as John Featherston. Searching for John Featherston's name online, she uncovers that his entire family, except for the daughter, had disappeared while residing in this house. At that moment, a strange breeze comes out from under the cellar door, making the power go out. On hearing Steven's cries for help, Keira rushes to the cellar but finds the lock stuck and the key missing. Peering through the keyhole, she's startled before realizing the real Steven is outside. The cellar door suddenly opens by itself, restoring power and revealing the key on the floor. Keira hangs it back and cautiously enters the cellar using her phone's flashlight. As Keira enters, the door closes, leaving her trapped. She asks Steven for help, but he's too short to reach the key, needing a chair. As Keira waits, and accidentally drops her phone, this disturbance agitates something below, causing heavy breathing and its approach up the stairs. Brian arrives just in time to unlock the door and release Keira. She expresses her feeling of a presence in the cellar and her missing phone. Keira mentions the similarity between the Featherston family's disappearance and Ellie's situation, but Brian dismisses her concerns. To calm her down, Brian goes to search for her phone but finds only a ball of hair in the cellar. The next day, Keira visits the Featherston wing at the National College of Mathematics to meet with Dr. Remy Fournette. She presents him with the equation from the cellar. As Fournette reads it aloud, the lights briefly flicker. Fournette explains that the office belonged to Featherston, a colleague of Erwin Schrödinger, known for the famous Schrödinger's cat experiment. Featherston collaborated with Schrödinger until his disappearance due to his son's illness. Only his daughter, Rose, knows the truth but remains silent, unable to recover. Fournette creates a complex graphical representation of the equation, suggesting involvement with multiple dimensions. He promises to update Keira later. When Keira returns home with a new phone, she receives a call from Fournette. He reveals attempts to contact her were met with a strange voice responding only with counting. It appears to be an incomplete sequence or an unfinished incantation linked to other dimensions. This colleague encountered a similar equation in a Belgian house where a family also vanished mysteriously. Meanwhile, Brian checks on Keira, leaving Steven alone in the rec room where the abacus starts moving on its own. Keira shares her findings with Brian. Leviathan refers to the abyssal serpent, and the house is named Zeus, Greek for the void before time, also known as the abyss. Brian, once again, dismisses Keira's concerns about the decorations. He tries to destroy the equation plaque with a hammer, but it remains unaffected. Simultaneously, the record player starts playing, drawing Steven towards the hidden compartment where he finds a pale Ellie, counting with glyphs on her face. Despite his parents rushing to him, the record player halts at 10, and Ellie disappears, leaving only her phone behind. The following day, Keira receives information about Featherston's daughter and locates an elderly Rose in a nursing home chapel. Rose writes Leviathan but clarifies it's one of the 7 princes of hell, summoned by her father to cure her brother. She explains the ritual encompasses the entire house. As Keira leaves, attempting to contact Fournette, she encounters only static and a voice counting on the line. Meanwhile, Brian starts his own investigation, noticing the triangles and pentagon form a 5-pointed star. The star adorned with glyphs represents the demon Baphomet, the gatekeeper of hell. Keira recognizes Baphomet's resemblance to Featherston's hand sign in the painting, and its inscribed arms echo Solve Coagula. She comprehends that Rose is right, the entire house has been constructed around this demon. Keira connects the equation to potentially opening a gateway. As she activates the record player to explain, Stephen loses control of his drone, leading him down the cellar stairs, counting each step. At the cellar's depths, Baphomet awaits, causing Stephen to scream as the power cuts out. Brian and Keira rush after him but find only the drone. Their search through the house yields no results. When Stephen's ball appears, bouncing down the stairs, a counting voice guides them to find Stephen about to enter the hidden compartment. They rescue him, discovering he's running a high fever. As Brian fetches water, Keira attempts to remove Stephen's shirt, discovering a star carved on his chest. Suddenly, Stephen recalls riding a horned beast before resuming counting. Keira finds Brian elsewhere, counting down and declaring something's arrival when he reaches 0. The cellar door opens, and Baphomet's approach is signaled by strong winds. Keira flees, but the demon finds her. She rushes into the cellar, discovering magically elongated stairs and a distant door. Evading Baphomet, she hides and explores the room, finding a tunnel leading to a vast space teeming with lost souls, among them Ellie. Keira grabs her daughter and rushes back, hearing Baphomet in pursuit. Returning to the house, she restores power, sealing the cellar door. With her family seemingly safe, Keira prepares to leave but finds her dropped flashlight at the entrance. As her family starts counting, Keira opens the door, revealing the elongated stairs. The house is no longer in the woods but in a desolate land.